Tents and campfires promise adventure, but for some, they became the setting for terror. Tonight, we share chilling camping stories that will make you think twice before your next trip.
The silence of the forest is a myth. It's a living, breathing entity. And that night, we felt its lungs constrict around us. It started with a whisper on the wind, a sound that didn't belong to the rustling leaves, or the gentle lapping of the lake against the shore. It was a sound that felt ancient, mournful, and wholly unnatural. My name is Chloe, and this is our story. Liam and I had sought refuge in the sprawling wilderness of Nova Scotia, a place we hoped would mend the quiet fractures that had developed in our relationship over a stressful year. The initial hours were idyllic. We found a secluded spot near an old, decommissioned lighthouse. Its stoic, white tower, a silent guardian against the vast, empty canvas of the sea. The campfire crackled. A warm heart in the cooling embrace of the evening, casting flickering shadows that danced like forgotten memories. We talked, truly talked, for the first time in months, the city's noise and anxieties melting away with each shared smile and gentle touch. There was a depth to our reconnection that felt as profound as the star-dusted sky above, a sense of peace we desperately needed. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, a primal perfume that promised tranquility. I remember the taste of slightly burnt marshmallows, the smoky sweetness clinging to my tongue. The fire painted Liam's face in hues of orange and gold, his eyes reflecting the flames as he spoke of our future. But as the moon climbed higher, a chilling dampness crept in from the water, and the rhythmic, almost hypnotic flash of the lighthouse began to feel less like a beacon and more like a searching eye. The woods, once a comforting blanket of darkness, now seemed to press in, its familiar sounds warping into something unsettling. The first sign of trouble was subtle, a strange moaning sound that seemed to emanate from the trees just beyond the firelight's reach. We dismissed it as an animal, maybe a fox or a distant owl. But then came a low humming, a vibrational tune that resonated in our chests, followed by what sounded distinctly like soft, heartbroken crying. The sounds would rise and fall, a ghostly symphony that made the hair on our arms stand on end. Liam, ever the pragmatist, grabbed a powerful flashlight, its beam cutting a sharp, white slice through the oppressive dark. It revealed nothing but a wall of impenetrable trees. Yet the sounds continued, circling us, always just out of sight. Our haven had become a cage. The pattern of our peaceful retreat was irrevocably shattered. The easy laughter died, replaced by clipped, hushed whispers. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves, sent a jolt of adrenaline through us. The romantic getaway had morphed into a desperate, wide-eyed vigil. We were no longer two lovers reconnecting with nature. We were prey, acutely aware of a predator we could not see. The turning point came when Liam, his face pale in the moonlight, pointed towards the base of the lighthouse. There, leaning against the cold stone, was a crudely made figure of sticks and twine, a twisted, vaguely human shape that hadn't been there when we'd explored the area earlier. It felt like a warning. Have you ever felt that primal fear, the kind that bypasses your rational brain and speaks directly to your survival instincts? That's what gripped us. The night stretched into an eternity. Moments of dead silence, where we held our breath, straining to hear, were shattered by a sudden gut-wrenching sob from the darkness. We abandoned any thought of sleep, huddling together in our tent, the thin nylon wall feeling as protective as paper. The zipper of the tent flap felt like the last lock on a flimsy door against an encroaching nightmare. We were trapped, miles from any help, with only the unnerving, rhythmic flash of the lighthouse counting down the seconds of our terror. As the first hint of dawn bruised the eastern sky, the sounds abruptly ceased. The silence that followed was somehow more terrifying than the noise it replaced. We didn't wait for the sun to fully rise. In a frantic, clumsy rush, we tore down our tent, throwing our gear into the car with trembling hands. We didn't speak, our shared terror a silent, screaming bond between us. As we sped away down the dirt track, I risked one last look back at the lighthouse. For a fleeting second, I thought I saw a figure standing in the top lantern room, a dark silhouette against the morning light. It could have been a trick of the light, a figment of my exhausted, terrified mind. But the image is burned into my memory, a chilling question mark at the end of the most terrifying night of our lives. We had escaped, but we left a piece of our peace behind in those woods, forever haunted by the weeping ghost of the lighthouse. Kimberly had booked the Pine Lake cabin specifically because it was remote. After months of city stress, she wanted nothing more than a week of silence, swimming, and terrible cell service. The rental listing showed a quaint A-frame surrounded by towering pines, with a private dock extending into crystal-clear water. What the listing didn't mention was the cemetery. She discovered it on her second morning, hidden behind a line of overgrown evergreens about 50 yards from the cabin. The headstones were old and weathered, dating back to the 1800s, with a few more recent additions scattered throughout. Strange place for a family burial ground, she thought, so close to what was now vacation rental property. That evening, as she grilled dinner on the small deck, Kimberly noticed lights flickering between the trees near the cemetery. At first, she assumed it was other campers or maybe maintenance workers. But the lights moved strangely. Too coordinated, too purposeful. They seemed to circle the perimeter of the burial ground in a slow, methodical pattern. She tried to dismiss it, but something felt wrong. The lights appeared every night at exactly 9:47 p.m. On the fourth night, curiosity got the better of her. Kimberly grabbed a flashlight and made her way through the pine trees toward the cemetery. As she got closer, she could hear voices. Low, rhythmic chanting that made her skin crawl. The lights, she realized, were headlamps or flashlights carried by a group of people moving between the graves. She crept closer, staying hidden behind a large pine trunk. In the dim light, she counted at least 8 figures dressed in dark clothing, methodically visiting each gravesite. They weren't just walking, they were placing things. Small objects she couldn't quite make out from her hiding spot. One of the figures looked up suddenly, scanning the tree line. Kimberly held her breath, pressing herself against the rough bark. The figure raised what appeared to be binoculars and began systematically searching the woods, searching for her. Kimberly backed away slowly, trying to make no sound on the needle-covered ground. But a branch cracked under her foot, a sound that seemed to echo through the still night air like a gunshot. The chanting stopped. All 8 headlamps turned toward the woods where she was hiding. Then they began moving in her direction, spreading out in a coordinated search pattern that suggested they'd done this before. Kimberly ran. She crashed through the underbrush, branches tearing at her clothes and face. Behind her, she could hear them calling out to each other. Not words she could understand, but the tone was clear. They were hunting her. The cabin seemed impossibly far away. When she finally burst through the tree line onto the property, Kimberly didn't stop to look back. She slammed the door, threw the deadbolt, and grabbed her car keys. As she fumbled with her phone, trying to get enough signal to call for help, headlights appeared in the driveway. Not 1 car, 3. They parked in a semicircle, blocking her exit. The engines shut off, but no one got out. They just sat there, watching the cabin. Kimberly turned off all the lights and peered through a crack in the curtains. the cars remained motionless for hours. Every time she checked, they were still there, a silent vigil that continued until dawn. When the sun finally rose, the cars were gone. But on her deck, arranged in a perfect line, were 8 small objects that hadn't been there the night before. They looked like the items she'd seen the figures placing on the graves, carved wooden tokens, each bearing symbols she didn't recognize. Kimberly packed and left within the hour, abandoning the rest of her paid vacation. She never reported the incident, never left a review for the rental property. But sometimes, late at night, she finds herself wondering about other guests who might have booked that isolated cabin. She wonders if they noticed the cemetery, if they saw the lights, and if they were fast enough runners.